Hello, and welcome to this quick video about shaman skills and what exactly they do in game. Just for this occasion, I redistributed my points just to be able to show you every single skill, and without much further ado, let's just go right ahead into the spiritual guide. Keep in mind, to unlock the next level of a skill tree, you need to spend a total of 5 points on the first tree. So for instance, 2 here, 3 here, and this skill tree unlocks. Just keep that in mind when you plan how to spend your points. So the first thing we have here is pretty self-explanatory if you ask me. It's called additional time, and it adds a total of 5 seconds per level. So you can get a total of 25 seconds that the round lasts additionally if you in person are the shaman. In dual maps, of course, it counts for both of them. So if you have 2 points and the other person has 3, it just adds up. The same is with Bigger Cheese. The Bigger Cheese actually is a quite useful skill because, for instance, if you place a plank and the cheese is small, sometimes people won't be able to reach it. So putting some points into that skill might actually be helpful, but that's up to you. So for each level you put into it, the cheese gets bigger by 10%, so it can get a total of 50% bigger depending on how many points you put into it. So as you see, I spent 5 points and the next skill tree level unlocked. Next one is Shaman Size, which increases just how big you are as a person, you could say. So for every point you put into that skill, your shaman just grows bigger. So you are easily recognizable, so mice can see you more easily. It doesn't really do anything else than just increase your size. The second one, Superstar, is just a skill that makes mice dance around you. So when you stand around and dance, depending on how many points you put into that skill tree, into that skill, 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 mice around you will dance with you. And the last one, Unburstable, just gives you a second life. So when you happen to die, if you happen to die while doing anything, while building, or if you just mess something up, you get an additional life. Keep in mind, in dual maps, this does not work. So if there's 2 shamans and the other one kills you, you do not get that additional life. The next level starts off with Easy Victory. So this is the little heart that you sometimes see shamans use that just instantly puts you into the hole. Keep in mind, when you use this skill, it only works as long as the mouse 1 has cheese, and 2, at least 1 mouse needs to have it made to the hole. If nobody made it to the hole, you cannot use Easy Victory. Ambulance revives dead people. It doesn't matter if anyone is in the hole or not, as long as anyone died by jumping off a cliff, by being cannoned, whatever, it revives people. 1 per skill level, so you can revive up to 5 people. For that, keep in mind that people who timed out, like people who are just AFK and did not move at all, those people cannot get revived. And Chief's Food gives the cheese you are holding to a mouse of your choice. So for this you need to keep in mind that you actually need to have cheese in order to give it to a mouse. And just like Easy Victory, at least 1 person needs to be in the hole for it to work. Another thing, the maps where you stole the cheese, like where you as shaman start out with cheese and the mice have to catch you. You cannot use Chief's Food in that occasion. The next one is Antigravity. It makes balls fall slower. So that just means any map that uses balls, like there's certain maps that just have balls by default in it, they just fall slower. So for each level they will fall even more slowly. Teleporter is the little teleport thing that teleports mice to you. Now you need to keep in mind there are 2 different teleporting skills. One that teleports you, this is actually in the Windmaster skill tree, and this one that teleports other people to you. As long as they are within your radius, so that little summoning circle around you, you can use that skill. It doesn't matter if anyone is in the hole, or it doesn't really have any restrictions. As long as they're in reach, you can teleport the mouse. And this one is called Speed Boost. and that just summons like a mini rune, you could say, and anyone who steps inside it will get this little speed boost. It sometimes is really helpful in combination with the springs, which I will be explaining in a second, because it lets mice go quite far away. So let's just put 5 points into this. Then we have the apple. The apple lets you summon, like quite literally, a small apple that has its own small summoning radius. So if you need to be working on 2 places at the same time and you don't want to go back and forth, or you want to give cheese to people who are AFK before they time out, you can just place an apple and you have an additional little spot where you can summon. For each level you get an additional apple, so you can summon up to 5 apples in total in one map. The Ancestral Spirit lets you summon things after you died. Sometimes when there's a dual map, you will see shamans still being able to try to kill everyone even though they died. If they do that, they have this skill in their skill tree equipped. So as long as you have this skill, you're able to summon things after you die, and it increases by 4 seconds for every point you put into it. And then there's the spring I just mentioned. It's pretty similar to the speed boost. It summons a little rune or a little field, and if you step into it, you just get bounced up. You have a total of 3 springs you can place, and if you place them, for instance, into each other or right above each other, the spring boost gets increased. So the mice just jump a little higher up. And last but not least, we have the cloud, which quite literally just summons a cloud. The cloud in itself is actually a pretty stable thing that helps you stabilize quite a lot of builds, especially in hard mode. Even though it depends on how you place the cloud, because it can be moved to the left and right if it's not rotated. But let me just show you that. So with the first skill tree being done, let's just restart this map and take a look at the things we just got. So as you can see, I put some points into the time, even though I just changed the time. But let's start off with... oh wait, I'm in divine mode. Let me change that. And do that again. So as you can see now, before I change the time, I actually have a little bit more time because I put some points into it. And as you can also see, the cheese is a little bit bigger than it normally would be. That's all because of the skills. So anyways, this is the apple, so as you can see I can't summon it outside my radius. But if for instance I place it here, and go over there, and try to summon this cannon, I can do it within the radius of the apple. Then we have the springs. There's 1 spring, and if I jump into it, I get a boost up. Not quite high enough to make it to the top. So if we place 2 of them, up we go. Then we have the speed boost, which also just summons this little thing, and if I step into it, I get boosted. Then we have the cloud, which, as I said, can be moved to the left and right, so you need to be careful that people don't push it. But if, for instance, I put it like this, because it can only be moved in that one direction, people can't push it. It can, however, be moved to the top. If, for instance, I do this, it goes up, so be careful, like... The wider side can be moved. The good thing about the cloud is that you can just re-summon it and the new cloud will take the place of the old cloud. Now just let me show you quickly what I meant about the speed and jump combination. For that, let me just get up there. Or not. Okay, I can't jump today, I'm sorry. So let's just do it like this. If we place both of them into each other, you will get both the jump and the speed boost. So it looks like this. If you need to pass like a gap or something and you don't have time to build, this actually is really helpful. With all that being said, let's move on to the next skill tree. The next skill tree is the Windmaster skill tree. In the Windmaster skill tree, there are a lot of skills that people... let's say argue about quite a bit. One of the most arguable skills would be the bubbles. Clean mouse. For every point you put into that, a bubble will appear whenever a mouse dies. So it just means that at the spot where the mouse dies, a bubble will be starting to raise up. You have to be really careful with that skill, because for once, the bubble can only carry a certain amount of weight, pretty much like a balloon, so it will pop if things on top of it get too heavy. The second thing is that it will lift your build. So unless you are using only B planks or the build is really stable, the bubble will pretty much just completely lift up your whole build, so you have to be careful with that. And then we have Endurance. Endurance increases your shaman's speed by 4% for each point you put into it. So that means you just move faster than other people around you for every point you put into that. You will see a lot of people being faster than you because a lot of people don't really like using the bubbles. For the sake of showing it though, I will put some points into both of it. The next one is Cleats. It increases your shaman's friction by 20% for each level. Friction pretty much in this case means how easily you move across the ground or against walls. The higher your friction is, the harder it is for you to move, you could say. Especially when you have the cheese. If you have a high friction, you will pretty much just be moving on the spot. However, for people who cannot wall jump yet and need to be able to wall jump while being shaman, this skill helps you, because if you have full friction, for instance, every wall pretty much acts like chocolate planks, so you can just keep jumping to get on top of it. Next one is Diet, which decreases your shaman's mass by 10% per level, so it pretty much just makes you lighter, hence the name Diet. And the last one is Opportunist, which just means once the last mouse enters the hole, you automatically get the win for the round. If you don't have that skill, you as the shaman yourself have to go to the hole as well. If you have that skill, however, as soon as the last person gets the cheese to the hole or gets started using this skill, the round is over. The next one is Choke Kiss, which is pretty much just also a skill to make other people use emoticons, just like the superstar one. So when you use the sit emotion, you will just make people around you blow your little kiss. So actually, it's just you sit down and up to 5 mice around you blow your little kiss. Then there's Rocket Scientist, which allows you to propel yourself up. You sometimes see people like having those little clouds coming out of them and then being able to jump really high. That's this skill. The more points you put into it, the farther you will be able to go up after you hold down the key. And the last one is the Companion Crate, which just summons a pretty heavy box. So it's kind of similar to just this normal box, but it's a lot heavier and it can only be summoned once. Pretty much like the cloud, if you place it somewhere else, the original one will disappear and the new one will appear in its spot. Then we have Tiny Budget. Tiny Budget summons a tiny plank. It's about half the size of the small plank. I will show you in a bit. So it's just this, and it's half of it. Each level lets you summon 2 of them, so you can get up to 10 per level. Then, as I mentioned before, there is a second teleportation skill, and that would be Personal Teleporter. Personal Teleporter will teleport you, yourself, to a location of your choice. So there's actually a little difference in how the skills look, which I will be showing you in a second. And this one is also usable at any time as long as it's within your summoning radius. You can, for instance, teleport to your apple if you have it. And it also can be used up to 5 times. And the last one is Projection, which pretty much if you push either to the left or to the right twice, you just well, you kind of teleport. It's like a small dash, you could say. Then we have Transformice, which, just like the game's name suggests, gives you the power to enable a mouse to use transformation. You might have seen the maps that sometimes appear if not a lot of people are in the room, where you have teleportation powers and there's no shaman. You have the same choice of things you can change into there. So it's the small box, the big box, an anvil, and the small and the big plank. You just use the skill on a mouse and they get the whole thing of choices to transform into. And you can do it once per level, so you can give up to 5 mice the chance to to transform. Then we have Stern Mouse. You have this ice cube skill, which lets you freeze mice on the spot and force them to die instantly, as long as at least one mouse is in the hole. However, you only can use it so many times per level, so this skill gives you up to 5 more ice cubes you can use. And then last but not least, for this row, we have Acrobat, which just gives you the opportunity to summon things while you're moving. If you don't have the skill and you start summoning, you just stop moving on the spot. If you have that skill, you can keep moving. And a skill a lot of people probably know, and from what I've noticed a lot of people want, is the Angel skill, which gives you wings and lets you fly around as long as you keep holding the up key. So you can just fly and slowly glide after you hold it, so you can't go higher up just by having the Angel skill, but it lets you slowly glide, which sometimes is really helpful if you want to get to a spot before other people can get there, or if you just want to move around. So with that being said, let's restart the map so I have my skills. And give ourselves more time again. So now we have some more skills, as you can see. And let's start off with the Acrobat one. So just before you saw, I stopped moving as soon as I started summoning. If I start summoning now, I can just move while doing it. Then we have the wings. Like if I jump off this box and keep holding my up key, you can see the little wings and they just slowly glide down. Depending on where you start from, you keep gliding until you hit the ground. So then we have the second teleportation skill. Now you see a little difference in those two skills over here. One has a little feather inside it, and the one with a feather inside it lets you teleport to the spot you summon the skill at. The other one without the feather will teleport mice to you. Here we have the companion crate, which, as you can see, can't easily be moved compared to this box. So if a lot of people push it, it can be moved. However, it is pretty stable. Keep in mind, if it's placed normally, people can't really get on top of it. If you rotate it a little, people can, and it's easier to be pushed. So keep that in mind when you use that skill. But as you see, like with a cloud, once I summon a new one, the old one disappears. Then here we have the tiny plank. I put 2 points into it so I can summon 2 of them. They can normally be anchored to anything you have, just like you used to. If we do, oh sorry, I'm not used to the summoning speed. So let's just take a tiny plank here and put it there. You can just normally use it like any other plank. And this is the Transformice skill. I mean, I have nobody in the room with me right now, but let's just assume there's a mouse standing there, and I use it on them. They get the whole repertoire of Transformice skills. And as for now, the third and last skill tree, even though we have a new one, well, 2 new ones coming soon, is the Mechanician tree. So this one starts off with Big Spirit. This one increases your spirit range of effect by 10%. So that just means you have your spirit skill, and this increases its range. And then we have multiple balls, which just lets you summon more balls, 1 per level. So if you have it on level 1, there will be 1 ball, level 2, 2, level 3, 3, up to level 5, where you have 5 balls every time you summon a ball. Then we have Lead Cannonball. This one increases your cannonball's weight by 20% per level. The heavier your cannonball, the more force it has to move things or people. So the more points you put into that, the heavier your cannonball will be, and the more power and the more push it has in the end. Super Anvil works similar but for anvils, so the more points you put into that, the heavier your anvils are. For some things like Hard and Divine mode, that actually is a really useful thing, considering sometimes those anvils are pretty much everything that holds a build for people. And then we have the Ice Plank, and the Ice Plank summons a small plank, much like this one, however it's made of ice. So if you move on top of it, you just slide a little, like those ice blocks certain maps offer you. Then we have the Aerodynamic Balloon, which increases the speed your balloon moves at by 10% per level. So it moves up into the air up to 50% faster. Then we have the Stable Rune. The Stable Rune is pretty much like the normal rune, but it's that yellow version you might have seen sometimes. And the Stable Rune, if used with, for instance, sea anchors, is really helpful in stabilizing builds. So it might be something you want to consider also for instance, hard mode. And then we have the Chocolate Plank, which, like the Ice Plank, summons a small plank. And it's made of chocolate, so it has a lot of friction, and if the people have cheese, they're slowed down a lot. However, for some maps where you want to make sure that mice you, for instance, revive are steady and don't move by themselves, this skill is really helpful. FYI, you have no limit on how many times you can summon the ice and the chocolate planks, so you have just an infinite amount of them as long as the map in itself actually has planks for you to use. So conjuring maps, for instance, will not have any of those things you additionally skill in here. That includes the companion crate, that includes the planks, that includes the easy victory and chief's food. So you can only use them as long as the map in itself actually allows you to. Next up we have the pre-inflated balloon, which means as soon as you select a balloon and start placing it, it's summoned. You can use that skill for up to 5 balloons, 1 per level. Then we have the Master Summoner, which increases your summoning speed. As I said a little earlier, I'm not used to this summoning speed because I personally like putting points into that. So just that little bar you have below your character when you start summoning fills up faster. And that's exactly, let's see, 6% per level, so up to 24%. Then we have the Anti-Spirit, and this means that this spirit here, instead of pushing people away, will attract people to them. So I will show you in a second. It just pretty much moves people in the opposite direction of the normal spirit. And then we have the no, that's it. Sorry. So let's move on to the next row. Then we have the Militia Worker, which lets you remove things that either the map itself includes, for instance those rotating planks, or things that you or someone else built and you then suddenly realize are in the way. So you can remove up to 5 items with this skill. The Architect skill is similar, however it changes the transparency of an object. So transparency in this case means you have the ghost version of a box and the normal version, for instance. So if you use that skill on them, I will show you in a second, it changes this box to a normal one and this other one to a transparent box. And then we have the sheep. It summons a sheep that explodes after a couple of seconds. And it lets you summon it lets you summon 2 sheep per round. So, I mean, you can use them to give mice a boost or to just troll people. They aren't really used in a lot of builds that I'm aware of. And the last skill we have for now is the Eagle Eye. It increases the summoning range by 30%, which means the circle around you, if you summon things, gets 30% bigger. So let's take a look at that. Keep an eye on the summoning range because I can't really show you before and after on the same map. And let's restart this and give us some time. So you saw my summoning range and now it's a lot bigger. because of that one skill. So now we have the Anti-Spirit. As you can see, Spirit boosts me up. However, if I put it up here, it will attract me to it. So then we have the Insta Balloons. So just if I click it, it appears. And I put some points, as you saw, into the speed of the balloon itself as well, so it also floats into the air a lot faster. Then we have our Explosive Sheep, which will just move until it goes boom and pushed me up in the air. Next up, we have the Transparency skill I told you about. So we have a normal box and a transparent one. You can see I can move on this one, but not on that one. So if we do this, this one will turn transparent. I only put 1 point into it right now, so it just works the other way around if you have a normal box. And the Militia Worker removes an item of your choice. As I said, it can be used up to 5 times. And the last thing we have to compare is the summoning speed. As you can see, things I summon are summoned a lot faster now because of that skill. And that's everything you need to know about the skills for now. I hope this answers all of the questions I've been receiving recently, and I will be taking a look at the 2 new skill trees as soon as they're out and put up another video for you to see. So with that being said, I hope you have a wonderful day, and maybe I'll see you around. Bye bye.